Well, hello, everybody. Here we are in lovely San Diego at the ServiceNow Knowledge 11 conference, the user conference for ServiceNow.com. And as always, this is Michael Cote with RedMonk. And to go over some of the newer stuff in ServiceNow, I have a guest with me to go over that. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Rob Phillips. I'm our Director of Solution Strategy at ServiceNow.
And we're just coming out of the keynote that you guys had this morning with the great pantsless IT guy, as I remember. There was an excellent cartoon kind of. It was a nice way of portraying the evolution of IT.
Yeah.
And along those lines, I mean, there's kind of two clusters of things that you guys went over in the keynote and have been talking about and that we're going to talk about. And the first one is this idea of social IT, if you will. And the second is you guys have kind of, unlike a lot of enterprise application vendors, you're sort of spending a lot of time on the UI, if you will.
That's right.
And sort of improving the end-user experience for your software rather than necessarily worrying about the stakeholders, the managers and everything. We're going to take a look at a demo of some of this stuff. And but before that, I just wanted to kind of get a sense of what those two areas are from you. And so why don't we start with this the more abstract idea of social IT. What exactly is social IT to you guys?
Well, I mean, so we're seeing the adoption of social behavior with technology all over the world. I mean, we saw a stat this morning. There's 6.8 billion people in the world, and there's 5+ billion mobile subscriptions out there today. So the adoption of mobile technologies and social technologies is rampant, and we think that there is a very obvious transition of that type of interaction from the consumer space into the corporate space, which has really been a driver for us. So starting to leverage more small pieces of information, readily available, Twitter-fall types of data in the context of IT management can be very, very relevant for managing systems, for having individuals collaborate with one another, and perhaps help themselves rather than having to go seek an individual IT person to resolve issues.
It sounds like part of what you're saying is, you know, there's these wacky consumer technologies like Twitter and Facebook and all these things, and you're almost talking about getting a real-time feed,
yes,
if you will, of stuff happening in IT and kind of putting it in front of various IT staff.
That's right, and we're it's being proved that wacky's probably not the right term. It's mainstream, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, Facebook's the third largest country in the world. So I don't think these are outliers any longer. This is the way people communicate today.
When you're looking at these non-wacky things, if you will,
right,
from the consumer world, I mean, there's numerous technologies or practices or whatever you want to call it that you could kind of pluck from that consumer space. And for you guys, like, what are sort of the top things that you're trying to repurpose for sort of a business enterprise setting in ServiceNow?
Really from day one, in the inception of our company in 2004, we're very inspired by what we saw in the consumer space. And this talks about the user interface area. When you look at, in those days, My Google or, My Yahoo or iGoogle or some Gmail application was just coming out, we see a tremendous simplification of the interface, so very easy to use, and yet still offers a lot of power and flexibility in the back-end tool. And we've seen more and more of that inspiration throughout the years with tools like Mint.com, certainly in a lot of the social interfaces. So it's interesting, the trend has really been this consumerization in the enterprise. Employees go home at night and they use all these tools, they use Amazon to shop, and then they come to work and the company presents to them a piece of Soviet-era technology, right, with hundreds of fields on the screen. It's unusable, and so truly the users are revolting. They're simply not using the tools that have been presented to them. They're going around the process. We talked this morning about shadow IT. Because the tools are so inflexible and unusable, they're just going outside of the corporation to get the help they need. So for us, simplicity is a driving force. We're always trying to bring the inspiration from the consumer space into the enterprise interface.
I guess one thing I come across is sort of the overwhelming, like, you're going to point this fire hose of information at me. One thing is, like if I had a Twitter-like feed hooked up to my service desk, like, how do I stop from being buried by all the stuff that's going to happen? Or like you had a demo this morning of live chat. I mean,
right.
If there's 50 people trying to live chat at me at once, like, how do I deal with that?
Yeah, so I think there are different notions. There is a skill associated with some of this, From a chat perspective, we're going to give you the ability to route chats based on a variety of methods, so that as you're managing a queue, generally you'll have a team of individuals that manage a queue, and so as new chats come in, you can pick those out of the queue at will or route them to different groups based on context. As a consumer of the information, and we see this heavily in Twitter today, yeah, if you've ever pointed your browser directly at the true open Twitter feed, there's, I mean, I can't remember the numbers, you know, 1 million tweets per 30 seconds or something are appearing there. So obviously you can't consume that knowledge. So it really comes down to being able to segment the information. Generally we do this by following people. And so in our system you can follow someone you're interested in hearing what they have to say. But because we're built on the ServiceNow platform that does all this other IT management, I can also follow documents. I could follow an incident. If I saw that something was broken and I want to understand when it's resolved, I can simply follow that incident, see when it's fixed. I can follow business services. So if I commonly use an application like SAP, maybe I want to follow that to see when planned outages are going to occur. So it's being selective around the types of people and pieces of data that you follow.
So, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, there's the traditional routing and rules engine behind any service desk thing that's trying to get the need of a user of IT to the right person, and also to some extent load balance the people who are replying to them correctly. But there's also the I don't know, the notion of like I don't even know what to call it, but sort of over time you build up this big filter of stuff that you follow and unfollow that you're interested in.
Right. So I think it's that, and then democratizing the information and giving the broad user base the ability to go and search the entire data store at will. And they can do that through keywords, or like Twitter, we use hashtags. So the ability to find that data very, very rapidly, I think, will be tremendously appealing to the audience.
The other group of things that you guys are doing, I guess later this summer, if I remember, is, and there were some nice demonstrations in the keynote this morning. There's a lot of UI or UX or usability improvements.
Right, right.
And it was, you know, it was kind of fun being in the large tent with all the people, because they were getting very excited about what, you know, would seem like to an outsider very basic things that you're changing
Agreed,
around.
yeah.
But it is, I guess with business software, you don't always have those basic UI things necessarily. And all of that said, I mean, what are kind of, can you give us an overview before we see the demo of like what these UI changes are oriented around?
One thing that certainly has changed from even just a few years ago we started writing the software to today is the screen resolution has dramatically increased. I mean, I think I looked at a new iMac desktop recently, and the native resolution was something like 2600 pixels. You know, just a few years ago it was 1024. So, and many of our customers who manage, you know, high volumes of tickets have perhaps 2 of those monitors sitting on their desk. So we wanted to take the opportunity to use some of the screen real estate more effectively, so I'll show you some examples of how we can split the data, multiple panes within our software. Additionally, over the years we've continued to broaden horizontally the application set that we offer. So as a subscriber to ServiceNow, you may have initially signed up for our service to do something tactical like incident management or change management. But over the years we've actually broadened the offering, and our customers have access to all this, be it cost management or project management or IT governance. So what's occurred is that the navigation of the system has gotten a bit unwieldy. There's a lot of, you know, accordion type menus all over the place.
A lot of trees of stuff.
A lot of trees of stuff. And so what we found is that most individual users have 4 or 5 or 10 things they frequently click on. Much like in a browser you have bookmarks.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to create a UI that allows you to drag bookmarks or favorites to a quickly accessible interface, just simplifying the number of clicks to navigate the system.
You know, one thing I wanted to clarify is, so these bookmarks that you mentioned, they're sort of saving the state of the screen and also where you are in the application, sort of like a filter of things you're looking at.
Sure, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, I mean, with that overview, let's check out a demo of what this stuff actually looks like.
Sounds good.